This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat, bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more. Also, this is a question I'm having conversations with people too around how do we create a system that is creates for accountability and among practitioners or facilitators or shamans, because it's, as a therapist, I have a regulating board who is able to take action for therapists who engage in some sort of abuse or sexual violation. But then there's things that aren't, people that aren't therapists they're not held to that. And so how do we create a system that does? I think right now, I just have colleagues who the only thing they're able to do is call that facilitator and say, hey, don't do this anymore. You can't do this anymore. But there's not a whole lot otherwise that they can do. So I don't know.
This is the harm of prohibition, right? This is the massive downside to prohibition. Because psychedelics are still illegal, there's no real way to create an above board self-regulating system for people who are not necessarily under the watchful eye of a licensing board, if you will. And yet I think that can be resolved or addressed. And I'll tell you a little bit how I see the vision of that in terms of what we're doing through Third Wave. And I think it's a couple things. One is this is really a weaving process, meaning, it's not, how do we scale and have as many providers as quick as possible? Some people would say that in the psychedelic space, they're like, there's going to be all this demand. We need to train, 80 million thousand therapists in the next 5 years. It's like this huge emphasis, and that's important, right? We do need to educate a lot of people. We do need better training. We do need more people who understand the sort of space of psychedelics, and to protect the integrity, scale too quick and everything goes sideways. We experienced this in the 60s, right? Turn on, tune in, drop out, give everyone super high doses of LSD. It was too much, too fast. The container couldn't be held, and boom, backlash, set us back, decades in many ways. And so I think it's essential that we honor that weaving process, that we allow for the organic growth, that we emphasize the necessity of training, of education, of space holding, right? There's so much. I was chatting with Peyton Nyquist, who's the CEO of Numinous, a few weeks ago, and he mentioned a really interesting statistic, which is that something like $2.4 billion have been invested in the psychedelic space. And out of that, 2.3 billion has gone into drug development and biotech. In other words, there is such an emphasis on the drug and very little money is going into the training and education. And it's imperative to create a healthy ecosystem that a lot more time, energy, money is actually invested in the people rather than the drug. That is the real revolution, in many respects, in many regards. And so, well, then how do we do that? How do we create that ecosystem? So through Third Wave, we've rolled out a directory of providers. I think we have something like 300 to 350 providers in there right now. Clinics, retreats, therapists, and coaches that are in that retreat directory. We have everyone apply, we have a process that they have to go through. There's some level of vetting and verification, although it's not as stringent as I would like at this point in time. And any coach, for example, that goes into our directory has to have first completed our training program. And that way they've agreed to our, ethical agreement. They've agreed to complete the entire program. We know them. We've been in medicine space with them. They've gone through ceremony with us. So we have that for coaches. Therapists, you have to have completed a training program with one of these big, it could be CIS, it could be MAPS, it could be Lauren Taus's, it could be IPI, it could be, any number, but you have to have completed that training program. And, you have to be open and willing to abide by the agreements that we've laid out here as well. Retreats, not as relevant here. Clinics, what we emphasize, there's so many now ketamine infusion clinics. So what we really emphasize is you have to be an integrative clinic in order to list with us. So I think first and foremost, it's we set parameters about who we let in. Then what we will be rolling out this year is a membership community that essentially is another layer of vetting. And we get about 300,000 people a month that come to Third Wave. And so in rolling out this directory, it's really like, how are we helping all of these people connect not only to education, but vetted and verified providers? And so the next stage of this is to just be really intentional about who is it that we are sending, for lack of a better term, clients to or leads to. And if you want to sort of work within our ecosystem, I think it comes back to community. It's, we know you, we've been in ceremony with you, we've gone to a conference with you, there are people who are vouching for you. And I think it has to be, for the time being, a human to human element in order to sort of keep some level of accountability with all these shamans, coaches, practitioners that don't have the oversight of a licensing board. So just to kind of come back and land this, I think first and foremost, the weeding process, organic growth, we can't go too quick, too fast. Community and the importance of community. Community isn't necessarily all inclusive. It's not necessarily, even if you're a fucker, we're going to let you in. There are boundaries, there's accountability, there has to be that process of discernment around community. And then I think third, technology and leveraging technology in order to help people find an ideal practitioner. And this is not just a problem or issue in the psychedelic space. This is a problem or issue in all of the healing space. It's like, how do you find a therapist that's aligned? And I have a sense that in the next 10 years, it's going to be easier and easier to match people utilizing AI or utilizing, other aspects or elements of intake forms. And I think that's the ideal of where this lands. It's, if we could help every person who's interested in psychedelics find an ideal match for them, whether that's a clinic, retreat, therapist, or coach, I think that will also help to significantly improve the likelihood of widespread accessibility for psychedelics.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.